So should you buy a Jeep Wrangler? You know, I think there's this big misconception out there that you should only buy a Jeep Wrangler, particularly the two-door, if you're going to be out beating the crap out of it off-road. You know, running through the ruts and the rocks and the hills and scratching up the sides with branches and roots and things like that. I'm here to tell you that is not true. You know, I've had a few Jeep Wranglers over the years, two-doors, and I have to say, and I'm not saying this is a good thing necessarily, because I wish it were a little different, but I've never taken one off-road. Not off-road to the extent that I'm running through rugged terrain. What a real off-roader would consider to be off-roading, right? And you get a lot of flack, I will admit, for it, if you don't take your Jeep off-road. You know, you're going to get a lot of razzing from people because they believe that they should tell you what you ought to do with the vehicle that you paid for, right? So there could be a little bit of guilt if you let things like that bother you. Me personally, I don't really care, because unless some of those folks are sending payments for that truck or Jeep to me, I don't really care what they think I should be doing. So, should you buy one? I say, heck yeah, why not buy one? And can you use them as a daily driver? Do you have to feel like you should be taking them off-road? You know, it kind of depends on where you live when it comes to off-roading. You know, where I'm at, which I have found really odd since moving here, I'm in deep South Texas. And you would think in deep South Texas, there would just be off-roading opportunities everywhere. I mean, that's what I thought. I'd be able to come down here and just hit the dirt anywhere, whenever I wanted to. But that's not true. You know, I guess what I didn't really consider is that land, of course, is probably going to be owned by somebody or some corporation, particularly farmers, farmland. There's a ton of farmland down here. I mean, you can drive by a strip mall and then the next lot is farmland. That's how it is down here. But the thing about that is farmland has craps in it. So unless you want to pay a lot of money for crap damage, or maybe have somebody come after you with a fire stick, you can't just turn off the road and go driving through somebody else's field, right? So there isn't a lot of opportunity. Now, there are some off-road parks in Texas, as I'm sure there are across the country, but unfortunately for me, the closest off-road park is about 4 hours or so away. So that means that I would have to make a 4-hour trip if I wanted to take advantage of one of these off-road parks. That's in addition to the time that you're gonna spend at the park itself, right? So it doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me to drive 4 hours, kick around in the dirt for a couple hours, and then drive 4 hours home. I mean, you're into a 10-hour commitment, right? I'm too impatient for that kind of thing, even though it would be a lot of fun to go tearing around off-road. So you may not have the opportunity. I don't, and that's perfectly fine, because as a daily driver, you certainly can use a Jeep Wrangler, particularly the new ones. You know, fuel economy wise, because it used to be Jeeps were getting like 8, 9, 10, 11 miles per gallon. You know, on the freeway, I can hit in the 20s in my Jeep Wrangler. Even in the city, I'm getting over 18 miles per gallon. Now, I know when you talk about that number or those numbers as compared to the hybrids and the EVs and just the more fuel efficient versions of vehicles out there these days, doesn't sound really good. But staying in the class of 4x4s, Jeeps, and trucks, that's not really too bad. It's acceptable to me if you're making a, 15-minute to half an hour one-way drive to work every day. It certainly is doable. There are cheaper options, but it's not going to break the bank. As far as comfort level, you know, it used to be that Jeeps were just horrible. You know, they bounce all over the road. You feel every pebble you run over. Comfort was just not there. Obviously, Jeep or Mopar has improved that. Now, you're going to notice we're hitting a rough road right now, and you're probably not going to be driving on roads like this. but this is as rough as it gets. You can probably hear a little bit of it. You can see me bouncing maybe a little bit. You might even hear the inflection in my voice change a little bit as I'm going over the bumps on this road. But it's certainly not horrible. I mean, yeah, it's not as comfortable as driving across a freshly paved brand new freeway, but it's certainly doable in the Jeep Wrangler, as you can see here. I mean, my head is not hitting the ceiling. I'm not flying around back and forth. It's just fine. Now, the technology that's in Jeeps these days, they used to be pretty darn bare bones. You know, my mother, not too long ago, bought a Jeep TJ, and it's pretty basic. It's a manual transmission. Whoever had it before did put a new radio in it, so at least it has Bluetooth and phone connectivity if you want it. But otherwise, everything else in that Jeep is pretty darn basic. Still a lot of fun to drive, and it's interesting, the suspension in it has kind of softened up a little bit, so it's even pretty smooth over the bumps and things itself, even though it's an old Jeep. But nonetheless, from a technology standpoint, it's pretty dated. Not anymore. You've got everything in the more modern Jeeps that you would want, particularly the 2024s, which is what I'm in right now. I've got Bluetooth, wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, nice big touch screen, and the diehards probably not going to like that because, you know, why do you have all that tech? It's a Jeep. It should be rugged and basic. I disagree. I like to have the rugged and basic feel of the Jeep, its appearance, its aesthetics, but I still want to have the most modern conveniences I can get in it, and we certainly have it in this version. Appearance-wise, Jeep, of course, the Wrangler two-door is very unique. It's one thing that Jeep has stuck to for many years. The only real problem they have, or mistake they made, I think, is when they went to square headlights in a few years of the Jeep Wrangler. That was a mistake. It is tradition to keep the round headlights, that grille area, in the Jeep Wrangler. Something my wife did not do, by the way. She put a whole new grille in her Jeep Wrangler. Not my favorite thing. I dig the traditional look of the Jeep. I think it's something that is a test of time, really. You know, Jeep would have changed it had we, the public, demanded it with our wallets. In other words, if we had stopped buying the Jeeps, which we have not. Jeep is still very popular, and it still sits right up at the top when it comes to resale value. Just amazing to me. The last thing I want to mention, you know, is reliability and quality. Jeep always takes or gets a bad rap when it comes to quality and reliability. I have to say, I've had several Jeeps. I've had no problems with any of them, other than that stupid auxiliary battery that Jeep is now putting in. That's a horrible system. They never should have done that. That's what I would get rid of. But otherwise, you're not really going to have to worry about quality and reliability in your Jeep if that's something that you're considering with the question of, should you buy a Jeep Wrangler? Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree. Jeeps are awesome, even for daily driving. Definitely have come a long way from where they used to be. And absolutely you should buy one if it's a vehicle that you're looking for and you're interested in. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.